Okay, moin. This video is part of a scientific Python programming lecture at the University of Bremen. And this short session we would like to have a look at code quality analysis tool and especially on the Bálint tool. And basically we are still at the same lecture as in the previous session, so we are still in lecture 7, testing code and analysis. Again, you can download everything from the same site as always, and I just would like to continue exactly at the same spot where we have stopped at the previous session. And basically in the previous session we were handling code testing and testing coverage and code testing coverage. So basically now we can ensure that we have a robust automatic test framework which can be easily run and test whether the algorithms which we have programmed works as it's supposed. And now what we can even detect whether there are some lines which are never run during the test. So we have an estimate whether how good we are testing our code in terms of lines. And now what we want to have a look is whether our code is readable enough or not, so that it's nice to read for others. And for that we were using the code analysis tool, so-called Bálint. And this Bálint is it's a very nasty tool. It basically reads your code and gives you scores. Depending how it likes your code, based on some patterns it looks at, it gives you a score. The maximum score you can get is 10, and if you're unlucky you can get even negative numbers. So let's have a look how we should deal with that. Basically, one way to run Bálint is just to go to this the folder where your project is, and then just here we are in the MyMath folder. And here is our project, and now we want to check whether the code is readable enough, and we would like to make it of course more readable if it's not the case. But before we do that, there is something very important. We just started this project and we know that the tests are working, so our project is functional. So basically the first thing we will do is we are just creating a repository and checking in this thing. So basically we will have a look. We will just add mymath.p and testmath.p. Those are the two files. If you look at git status, we see that there are a lot of other things which are just flying around, which were generated by the various tools which we have used. So let's just do open leafpad and just get a .git ignore file as you know it already, and let's just add this .cache directory, the .coverage directory, right? This is the .cache, the .coverage file, the .spy project directory, .spy project directory, then this spy cache directory, and finally if you call our directory with the HTML coverage, information coverage HTML always, then we can also add that one. So let's save that, and then let's see whether git status, and now it's much better. And of course we have to add only git ignore, and then basically the project is in at a phase that we cannot check it in. So we have a git check in. As you see, I'm using the abbreviations with the aliases, the git aliases which you have defined, and basically initial. This is the initial project check-in, right? And now that here we made a snapshot of our project, now we can test on quality, on code readable quality, and eventually refactor. That means changing the code without changing the functionality. So let's have a look at this Bálint tool. This Bálint tool would be basically here you have Bálint, and then you are running it on source, on the source file, or source file is called mymath.py in this case. We are running it, and you see there are several problems it is here complaining about, and we have a score of 5.5 instead of 10, which is not very good. I would say if you have a score about 9, you are fine. If you have a score below 9, then your code definitely can be improved. Okay. How can I run Bálint from here, from the environment? That I can do as well. I can just go to MyMath, and then I can here go to run source and run static code analysis, or just pressing the button F8. So let's do that. I'm just pressing the button F8. Now in this window here, as you see, I have exactly the same information as before. I will just hide myself so that you can see it better. Here it's complaining about the trailing white space. And the nice thing is that here and here and here you can just click on these places and it immediately takes you to the right spot. And trailing white space means, you see here I have a few characters which are not visible, and usually it's considered good practice to remove all of them. And also here I have the trailing white spaces, so I can just remove them. And here I have the trailing white spaces, and here a trailing new line. That means I have a trailing new line, one line more and an empty line. But it's not really that serious. And I corrected it. I'm running the tool again with F8, and now it's much better what I got. Now my score is almost 9. And the only thing is here the NN, it doesn't like the variable NN. And especially I could just change it to N, although as you know, I don't like variable names with one letter because it's very difficult to search for them in the text. But let's try it, and let's try whether it gets better. And apparently Bálint is still not very happy about that. So it says N doesn't conform to the convention which it defines. And yeah, well, no, there are many questions. I could, for example, name it N1 and try my luck with that. And even N1 is not that nice. And then if I call it num1, for example, just to test it, whether that makes Bálint satisfied, it does. However, me personally, I find that num1 doesn't look nice, and I would like still to use my double character variable names. Actually, I think the Bálint convention is not to allow single character variable names. And but of course, I also wouldn't like to have, if I run the code, always score penalty to that. And in order to do that, you can configure Bálint yourself to lift some of the very rigid rules it tries to apply. And this is exactly what you can do is if you are setting some things into .bylint.rc file. So basically in your home directory you can create a .bylint.rc file, and you can there store some rules. And basically what I would like to suggest you is just to download from the website of the course. Basically, I'm providing a default Bylint.rc file. So if you just go to here, chapter 7, and here there's a Bálint configuration file. Let's just save it first. Save link as. We will just store it in the downloads folder first as Bylint.rc, and let's have a quick look at that. What is inside? So I will just open it with leafpad in the download folder. This Bylint.rc file. So let's see what we have downloaded, and you see this is a kind of ini file. And there are many things you can configure. And if you look for the variable names, then here the variables, there are many things you can set up, and also variable names. Here, good variable names, for example, you can choose one letter variable names, but only if it's just I and K, and two letters if it's EX, and or with capital R if it's run. So there are some rigid rules, and especially here it says that the variable regex must be a letter, another letter, and which 1 to 30 times, and that means that basically I'm not even sure why it didn't like NN. Okay, because sorry, I know, because I changed it here already. So this is the change version which I did, and now I'm allowing to 2 letters stuff. So basically here 1 letter and another letter would be possible. So basically the point is you can configure this Bylint.rc according to your need. Of course, you should not configure too much, because then you are getting very far away from what people usually use as a convention, but Bálint is sometimes a little bit rigid. No, so let's move this downloads Bylint.rc file after we have visited it as in the home directory as .bylint.rc. It will be a hidden file, and let's have a look whether it arrived there safely, which should be of course the case, but let's see exactly. So .bylint.rc is indeed this file, and now we can test whether that works out better. So here you see I still have NN here as variable, and now I'm just running it with F8, And let's see, no, I have 10 points from 10 points. It's quite nice. So apparently my my routine is satisfies Bálint's expectations. It doesn't mean that it's completely readable, but it's definitely it's a very good sign if your Bálint score is above 9 and as a readability. And I would like to suggest you try to maintain a Bálint score of 9. And it's a very nice tool if somebody contributes to your code. Then instead of saying here, please convert variable name here, please, you just say run Bálint over that, and you can contribute your patch if your Bálint score is above 9, for example. Okay, we could also test for test MyMath if you wanted. And here it says, okay, this source code has not been here evaluated yet. No Bálint was running, and you say, I mean, this is a disaster what we have. Many things are these trailing white spaces, and this trailing white space is very annoying. And basically, in order to avoid this annoyance and always fix it by hand, something which you don't see anyway, it's much better to go to tools and basically to preferences. And in the preferences, in the editor preferences, in the advanced settings, you can basically convince Spider to automatically remove trailing white spaces when saving the file. So we will just apply it and then say okay, and now we will just change something, adding something here and saving it. And now if I'm running, and you see that it was removing the trailing white spaces here, but probably also here. So basically you see there are no more free characters here. And now if I'm running Bálint over that, then it looks probably much better. So it improved somewhat. And now we can just look, for example, here it says final new line is missing. Okay, fine, that means here it would like to have a new line. I just add it, then this should vanish, and then hopefully my score improves somewhat. And indeed, it's much better. Now I have 7 things which I should here fix. And if you look at that, for example, it says the constant name doesn't conform to a certain convention. And the reason for that is that basically everything which you have in a Python code should be always be in functions. And if it's outside, if the variable is outside defined, then it's considered to be a constant. And constants are basically in the convention in Python is that constants are always capitalized with capital letters. So basically here I would just change that one, the factorials. And then now I try to get Bálint to reevaluate, and yeah, I had 7 messages before. Now I have to say, okay, I have 6 messages, so basically that one I managed to fix, and now I have to look at what are the other errors which are still appearing here. Missing function docstrings. Of course, we have learned that it's a very good practice to add docstrings to functions. Whether it's necessary for test routines or not, it's a question you have to decide, but I could just write a small things test factorials with predefined values. Okay, the small round int. I mean, that would be definitely good to something which you document, because this is not trivial what it does. So it generates a small random integer in the range 1 to 10. Then it's clear what it does, and then here tests consistency in lower factorial, basically. So the factorial neighbor, and here exactly, and basically I can just write the same here, but with the upper. And then basically in good manner I also documented all my functions. So let's with F8 run Bálint again over that. I had 6 messages before. Now after Bálint has analyzed, I have only 2 messages, and my score is almost at the right thing. And also the other 2 are here missing docstrings. Yeah, exactly. So I have to say, okay, testing negative argument, and here testing functional argument. No, it's basically also for everybody. It's clear what it does. Let run Bálint again, With a bit of luck, we have now basically everything here. Very good, 9/9, and there are 2 warnings. And let's have a look here. What's the problem here? I can just hide my picture that we can see it. And they say redefining small rand int. And why? Because small rand int here is a function, and I'm using the same as a variable name, and that's usually not a good practice. However, basically here in the PyTest framework, this is exactly the way how we have to deal with that. So basically, this is something we should here basically not care about that. So this is something we have to accept, or Bálint would have to accept, because there's not much. Yep, this is how you have to do it in PyTest. But of course, the problem a little bit with that approach is that, of course, every time when I run a Bálint test, I will see this warning, and my score will be also lower, and I will never know is my score lower because I'm just ignoring a warning which I really want to ignore, or is it something which is really bad. And of course, we could now go to the .pylintrc file and try to fix it there. So basically change the pylintrc rules to ignore such kind of mistakes. However, we do not want to ignore those mistakes globally, because maybe if I'm doing it outside of the PyTest files, basically the main file, such a mistake, then this is something which is not a good practice and should be avoided. So I would like only basically just disable this check for this single file, and that we can also do by basically specifying a few Bálint options. And basically you can say Bálint colon and disable, and then you are writing basically the number of the warning 0621, and let's try to now run the static analysis again by pushing F8, and let's see what Bálint does. And you see, no, it's vanishing. So basically you can disable if you want certain things for a certain file just by specifying this command, this special command, this Bálint disable command, and then you have a score of 10, but you have disabled something which must be disabled, because this is exactly the way how you want us to do that in the PyTest framework. Of course, you should make sure that you are not disable something which is important. So be very careful with disabling Bálint tests. Only disable them if there's a good reason for do so. And the last thing which I would like to show you is a coding standard, Python coding standard, additional to what Bálint checks, is so-called PAP proposal, Python and a PAP8 proposal, which contains also a kind of style guide how you should program in Python. And it's a very good idea to turn also that check on in Spider, and you can do it in the preferences menu and code in the introspection. So let us do that. I'm just going to the tool menu and the preferences, and I have to look here in the editor, and then code introspection and analysis, and here real-time code analysis, and then this is a PAP8 code conformance, and I will just apply it, and then basically the Python would check whether my code satisfies this PAP8, and you see here there is no warning, and it says, okay, this is one of the rules in this style guide that expecting 2 blank lines, but found only one before the function. So basically I will just make an empty line there, and actually it's also a little bit, in my opinion, also more readable if you are basically here separating global functions from each other with 2 spaces. And now I'm basically here saving it, and also those things remain. So basically now, as much as I can check my code mechanically for readability and elegancy and whether it's nicely written or not, I did basically everything. If I go here again, it usually before every function definition, global function definition on the module scope, it expects two white spaces. And now I think my code is as beautiful as it can be. It's quite readable, it's well formatted, so I hope that if I would distribute it, then people can read it easily. And the nice thing is, if they can read it easily and they enjoy to read it, then maybe it's much easier to convince them to contribute to the project. With that, I would like to thank for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the lesson as much as I did, and I hope you see at the next session. Thank you, take care, bye bye.